A brand new report has revealed a new top target in the Minnesota Wild free agency sweepstakes in Matt Duchene. We're going to be talking about this, going over these reports, and why this is a very interesting target. We're going over as well a new article breaking down a possible firing in the AHL and the NHL system from Bill Guerin after multiple failures in their system. We're going to be breaking it all down. We have a lot of interesting reports here today, ladies and gentlemen. Very quickly, before we do jump into all this news here today, be sure to hit the sub button if you haven't already. We had a lot of news, Minnesota Wild news coming towards you when we get closer to the draft and free agency, and things are already starting to heat up, as you know, with the Marco Rossi stuff, as well as Wild targets coming in and out of one ear and out the other. We know it's just over 80% of you guys watching right now are not subscribed to the channel, so be sure to do so if you're looking for your Minnesota Wild news. But let's get straight into this here, starting off with this article. However, there's one name in the NHL free agency that makes sense for the Minnesota Wild. Dallas Star center Matt Duchene has proven to be one of the best value signings in the league over the last 2 seasons. This summer, he is seeking stability, and Minnesota should give that to him. Now, Matt Duchene is someone we've spoken about here very briefly, but someone who is a very phenomenal target for this Minnesota Wild team and fits the bill for what they're looking for. Now, there are some things that will have to be taken into serious consideration before any signing similar to Matt Duchene, any of these other top targets, really comes to fruition, and that's what's going to happen with Kirill Kaprizov. We know that he's trying to stay. We know that the Wild are trying to keep him, but the big thing is the price tag. Is he going to be making, all this money in the world compared to the rest of the NHL? Is he going to be making record-breaking numbers? What's going to be the deal? Is he willing to take something team-friendly? There's a lot of uncertainty surrounding that right now, and I think that is something the Wild need to really figure out whether it is confirmed, finished off, or not before they go out here and make some smart decisions on the rest of these players. So I want to pull up the Wild's cap situation at this very moment. Currently, they're sitting at $15.7 million. That comes with the Parise and Suter stuff coming off the books. Now, not completely. They're still 1.5 or whatever it is. That's going to be over the next 3 seasons. Still taken up, but much better than the $14 million we were previously looking at. Now, 15 of this, of course, still is being able to spend anywhere. Kirill Kaprizov's money, our needed upcoming money, is not part of this. So when we're looking at this, the Wild realistically have $15.7 million to spend. Now, looking at Matt Duchene's next upcoming contract predictions, according to AFP, he's making a 3-year, $7 million deal. Now, this is interesting for a few reasons. We're going to be kind of going over each of them, and listen closely, because I want to know your opinion in the comments below about a possible Matt Duchene coming to the Minnesota Wild. I want to know what you think about it when it comes to the price tag as well, because when we go and take a look over the next few seasons for the cap predictions for the Minnesota Wild, currently, as I mentioned, sitting at 15.7. Next year, immediately jumps up to $46 million. Now, that's also going to have to be taken out of Kirill Kaprizov as well. His contract is expired in that offseason, so you really have to, in theory, put $15 million of that to Kirill Kaprizov. And, he may not be making $15 million necessarily, but $15 million is a comfortable spot for Kirill Kaprizov to, almost have that guaranteed signing. And putting that into perspective over the next few years as well, Matt Duchene's $7 million deal may not be a horrible one, especially with the cap going up. We don't necessarily know how much. We have some projections and whatnot, but you'll never really know until it actually happens. So seeing a $7 million contract for a guy like Matt Duchene, who fits the bill, is a center. Now, is a slight bit older here for the Minnesota Wild, or for, NHL free agents, 34 years old. But when you look at his seasons in the past, he's really having one of the best career years in his career this season with the Dallas Stars. Now, taking on a much bigger role, he's remained healthy. He's really been a player that, has been able to play consistent over the past few seasons. And ever since he left Colorado in 17-18, he's seemed to have a lot more playing time, not just in the playoffs, but also with whatever team he's on in the regular season. He's been more confident, it seems like. He's not had to be that number 1 guy. He's been able to be that 3 or 4 guy, and putting in between, let's just say, a guy like Kirill Kaprizov, Matt Boldy, things like that would really work well. And I feel like comparing that to this season as well, when we do take a look at Matt Duchene, 82 games, 82 points, point per game at the end of the day. Second line minutes, 17 minutes time on ice. Whether you want to put up it's Daniil Yurov, whether he's going to be in the center position for the full year. You have Joel Eriksson Ek, who has had some injuries in the past few seasons, but has been able to consistently play as well and been a very good center. It gives the Wild a lot more options. And whether or not Marco Rossi is going to be on this team or not, still means the Wild need a center regardless. So Matt Duchene is a very interesting option at the end of the day, and I want to know what you guys have to think about it right here in the comments below, because there's going to be some more signings coming, but we really just don't know at this point what we're going to be seeing or who. But Matt Duchene is one that seems to be breaking through in the list of candidates for the Minnesota Wild. So let me know what you think in the comments below about all of that. But we need to jump into our next topic here, which is another very interesting one. This time coming from the House of Hockey. And I'm going to pull up this article from Jack Sutherland and what he had to say. The Minnesota Wild could be getting ready to move on from Judd Brackett, their director of amateur scouting, especially if GM Bill Guerin doesn't trust him. Are the Minnesota Wild preparing to move on from the director of amateur scouting, Judd Brackett? Wild fans have noticed in recent years that several of the Minnesota Wild recent draft picks are either tolling away in the AHL or have been outright traded by general manager Bill Guerin. And this is not something that's on Bill Guerin. As you see there, Judd Brackett has been one that has put these opinions out there. Now, our opinions and kind of be like, hey, this guy's good. We like him. You should draft him. A lot of these players, very, very good. But for the direction the Minnesota Wild have been in the past few years, that's where a lot of concerns are being raised. Now, I want to pull up some non-roster Minnesota Wild draft picks that are still around the AHL, non-roster defensemen. So, Jack Pert, Carson Lambos, David Spacek, Cameron Karate, and Ryan O'Rourke. A few players here who are on the younger side, not necessarily rookies, not necessarily vets at this point, but players that have been thought that they would be in the NHL already for the most part, some give or take. But one name in specific, Carson Lambos. I feel like when we drafted him, the conversation was he's going to be the next big defenseman for the Minnesota Wild, and we have yet to see him be at the NHL level and stay at a level he was supposed to be at. That's a big concern for the Minnesota Wild when it comes down to it, by wasting away picks that could be used somewhere else, that could be used in a more dire position for the guy that they think is the best, who may not be as not necessarily ready, but not be in the level that they want to so soon. I feel like that also just comes down to David Spacek as well, Carson Lambos, young defensemen like that. And I also have the forwards here that we're going to go over in a minute, but Carson Lambos really was the one that stood out to me as the prime example of what Judd Brackett really brought into the whole system of the Minnesota Wild. Now, taking a look at the forwards as well, Daniel Yura, definitely a different scenario. Him, Riley Heidt, Hunter Heidt, Caden Bankier, a few players there. Now, of course, Daniel Yura wasn't going to be over yet. Now we will be. We'll be over next season. Going to be interesting to see what happens there. But you have guys like Riley Heidt, who's still young, Hunter Heidt, who's still young, Caden Bankier, 22 years old, another player that could and certainly should be at the NHL level. Whether or not with the Minnesota Wild, it's still, he's possible that he could be, but he's reached that level where he's shown he could be there. And the Minnesota Wild, once again, certainly seems like they expected him to be at that level earlier than expected. And so the fans kind of had that reaction early on in the draft. And when everybody was kind of getting picked here throughout those years of, 2020 to 2023, it really just kind of goes to show how not just deep this Wild team is, but how their AHL system to the drafting kind of idea comes into a very bad situation for the Wild. We mentioned Iowa Wild. They've been really bad over the past few years. They got to learn how to win there before you can learn to win in the NHL. I feel like that's really hindering the development of some of these younger players, and also just kind of, limiting them to an AHL career rather than an NHL career at this point. So let me know what you think about this report right here of Judd Brackett. Do you think he's going to be gone? Do you think that there's something that Bill Guerin is really waiting for? I feel like this could be a very interesting thing here in this year's draft. The Wild, of course, don't have a first-round pick, so you're not going to see, I guess, the direct implications here right off that, but we do have a second-round pick. We do have some more picks in this draft that are going to be impactful ones, and we know how good the Wild are at drafting late, but when it comes down to it, early on in the draft, the Wild are not necessarily the best team when it comes down to trying to develop these players into NHL players as early as possible. So let me know what you think about all of this here in the comments below. As I mentioned, we got a lot of news coming for you over the next few days and weeks as we get closer to free agency and the NHL draft. And Wild reports are heating up. You won't want to miss it. We're going to have it all here for you guys. But that's all I got in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. But I'm signing out. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.